For the past several years, Fortnite's storyline has felt like a collection of separate stories that just so happen to take place within the same universe. In Chapter 5, Valeria opened Pandora's box, which caused all sorts of chaos to occur in Hope's homeworld. In Chapter 6, we visited the magical island of Oninoshima that was being threatened by an ancient demon king known as the Dark Presence. And now, in Chapter 7, our heroes are facing off against a powerful being from the last reality known as the Dark Voyager. Up until now, these three plotlines felt pretty loosely connected and sort of just happened one after another. But what if I were to tell you that these three chapters have all been part of one master plan this entire time? This may be my most insane theory I've ever crafted, and I'm probably going to sound like I've completely lost it, but joke's on you, that happened to me years ago. Anyways, if you enjoyed this theory, strike that like button and subscribe to the channel, and if you'd like to support me one step further, consider becoming a channel member or using my code ThunderDM in the Fortnite shop. Shameless plugs aside, it's time for some theory crafting. So I think it's best to start this theory where it all began, back during that migraine known as Chapter 5, where Hope's sister Valeria unearthed Pandora's box, which set all of the events that occurred during that chapter into motion. Now at the time, we all wrote this off as simply a plot device that was used to set up the rest of Chapter 5's story. But in reality, there was always more going on here. One thing never quite sat right with me, and that's why would Valeria do all of this? Why would she throw away her comfortable life with the society to unearth Pandora's box? Well, I think it's because Valeria was never working alone. Since it's been a while, you may have forgotten that the entire reason Valeria became interested in the box was because she was following some notes left behind by her grandfather on not only the box, but also things such as rift butterflies and the 0 point. But how would their grandfather know anything about these topics? Unless he was someone who not only traveled the Omniverse, but had also studied these things for possibly hundreds of years. And what if there's someone who's still alive today, despite Hope likely being told this grandfather of hers had passed away before she was even born? But who would have connections to the Greek world and seemingly also be a member of something like the Imagined Order?
Oh, I know, Midas!
And that's what they want you to think. But no, there's always been another. And it's been right in front of our faces this entire time. Hope and Valeria's grandfather is Geno. I know it sounds crazy initially, but let me explain my reasoning here, as there's actually a lot of evidence over the years that points to this. For starters, we know that the Imagined Order agents were granted immortality. For example, Jones is confirmed to be over 1,000 years old, and he was just a field agent, so it's safe to assume that Geno has lived far longer. And this is backed up by the fact we know that Geno has essentially lived multiple lifetimes. He was originally the ruler of the Oathbound Empire, who dreamed of creating a perfect world. His studies led him to discovering the secrets of the 0 point, which is how he made himself and others immortal and founded the Imagined Order. Though Geno did not choose to live this existence alone, as we know he had two daughters, the Imagined and the Order, who, despite being his enemies, he still cared for and numerous times tried to convince them to rejoin his side instead of hurting them. But what if these two weren't his only children? As I said previously, Geno has essentially lived multiple lifetimes due to his immortality, and I do believe that he has long desired to have an heir to his empire, which is why he actually had another child. Geno had a second family, but this one was not granted immortality, as this time he hoped this family tree would eventually produce the perfect heir to his empire he long wished for. And he would finally find this in his granddaughter Valeria, someone who not only shared his ambition but his ideology, which is why he gave her enough funding to join the society. That way, when the time was right, she could unearth Pandora's box for him. And I know what you're probably thinking now is, cool story thunder, but where's your proof that Geno was involved in this Greek reality? Well, at the end of Chapter 5 Season 1, we were introduced to this character named Odyssey, whose description called her an ageless spirit of adventure, and mysteriously, she also had a style with a helmet that looks eerily similar to the one we see the ageless, aka Geno Snapshot, wearing when he was the ruler of the Oathbound. So this already suggests Geno had some sort of involvement here, but when it comes to Valeria directly, we just need to take a bit of a closer look at her original concept art, and you'll notice she originally had black hair with a white streak in it, just like Geno. And I think it's incredibly possible that the red hair she has now is simply a result of her fire powers, and this is what her natural hair actually looks like. But even if you still don't believe me that Geno and Valeria are related, there is still evidence suggesting Geno's involvement throughout the Chapter 5 story. I do truly believe he was working with Valeria to unearth Pandora's box, as he had plans for its powers, but someone else connected to Geno found out about the potential of this box and made their own scheme to take its powers for himself, and this character was none other than Dr. Doom. So now we need to flash back to the Zero War comics, where we know that Geno had invited Dr. Doom to be a member of his inner circle, something I theorize Valeria is also a part of. Doom had accepted Geno's invite, but he didn't do this to simply be Geno's underling. Doom joined so that he could use Geno's knowledge for his own plans. Being a part of this inner circle is how Doom found the location of Pandora's box, and why he invaded the Ice King's castle to steal the Wanderer's cloak he used to trick Megalodon into thinking Doom was this all-knowing being that could see the future, before he inevitably betrayed the Wastelanders to steal the powers of Pandora's box for himself. But we all know how this turned out. Doom was ultimately defeated by Hope leading an army of Marvel and Fortnite heroes, and the box's powers were drained out of Doom and mysteriously vanished into the Omniverse. And for years we've all wondered what happened to these powers. And I think I've finally found the answer. But before I tell you, I need you to listen to this audio log from Hope during Fortnite Remix.
With all of your connections, you probably know this already, but Pandora's box is a part of something bigger. I can't shake the sense that I'm a part of it too.
And Hope was right. Both her and Pandora's box really are part of something bigger. And after all this time, I finally know what this means. Pandora's box acted as that reality 0 point. It's why that island had a loop despite being the only island we've ever visited that didn't have a 0 point shard. The powers actually were so much alike that when Hope and Jones tried chasing after the box's powers, it led them to the 0 point shard in Oninoshima. But someone else actually found the powers of the box, Geno. And using these powers, he made something, a reality that was never meant to exist. A copy of Reality Zero in its original form, Reality Unknown. And to give the island a loop, he formed the powers of the box into a makeshift 0 point. In other words, Fortnite OG 0 point is actually the powers of Pandora's box. This is why Reality Unknown is so unstable, and why events are slightly different. Geno formed this island for his utopia, but he knows this 0 point will only hold for so long. He needs the real one to make this a permanent reality, which is why Geno allied himself with the last reality, some likely sharing his ideals. But how did Geno know all of these events would play out like this? For this to work, everything had to go perfectly according to plan. And what if there's a reason for this? Geno has been described to be a visionary, and maybe we should be taking that term more literally. What if Geno knew how these events would play out, because he actually gets visions of the future, just like his granddaughter, Hope? See, this is where it all comes together. Geno knew events would play out like this. He knew Valeria setting the box free would result in Doom trying to take the powers for himself, but he would ultimately be defeated and the powers would be set free into the Omniverse, which Geno then took for himself and used to form the makeshift 0 point to make Reality Unknown, where he would disguise himself as the fake visitor to trigger the events that would ultimately create the Red Cube. The cube would then be used in the 0 hour event to defeat the Dark Presence, which allowed Dark Voyager to obtain the first 0 point shard. And so far, everything had gone according to plan, but there was just one potential problem. Hope is also able to see the future, and she could potentially ruin everything, which is why he's somehow been jamming her abilities ever since she reached the Golden Coast. And now you're likely wondering, if that's the case, why not just order Dark Voyager to take out Hope? That way he can still stay disguised as the Visitor and get his biggest issue out of the way. It's because it's Geno's one flaw. Despite several members of his family being his enemies, he is unable to bring himself to harming them. He will try time and time again to convince them to join his side, and the one thing that makes Geno still human is the love he feels for his own flesh and blood. I know, that was a lot, and maybe I'm completely insane for this, but that's the fun part of making theories, trying to put the pieces together. But let me know your thoughts in the comments, I'd love to hear them. And again, if you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, and if you'd like to go one step further, consider becoming a channel member or using my code ThunderDM in the Fortnite shop. But that's all for now, see ya.